Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Cause Leadership Podcast. My guest today is Jeff Good, and Jeff is a principal with Cresa. We're going to get into it with who Cresa is in a few minutes here. But Jeff, welcome. Glad to have you here with us today.
David, couldn't be happier to see you again, and it's nice to be on your podcast.
Well, great to have you as a guest. And we've got an interesting topic today. It's real estate for nonprofits and charities. So this is an important piece for many organizations. It's probably one of the largest expense lines, I'm sure, but we'll get Jeff to comment on that. But yeah, Jeff, just looking forward to this. But just as a quick overview, Jeff he's worked in corporate, he's worked in nonprofit, he's been a CEO in the charitable space, and is now working back in corporate again, but in the real estate market. So he brings a wealth of information for those of you who are leaders in the charitable space. He knows many of you already, I'm sure, but he'll give some great insight today that perhaps we don't always get to hear about as it relates to the charitable sector. So Jeff, again, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, but also just who Cresa is and what's their role in the marketplace today.
Right. So let me actually start by amending one point that you made off the top. It's not
Okay.
incorrect, but it's really about how I perceive my role. I honestly don't think of myself as being back in the corporate world. I
Okay.
appreciate Cresa is a commercial real estate brokerage, but when I talk to people, clients, family, friends, I really still think of myself as working in and for the charity and not-for-profit sector. So I would introduce myself as somebody that just happens to be a real estate expert, and I work in the charity and not-for-profit world. So Cresa, Toronto, is a wholly employee-owned brokerage firm here in Toronto, owned by local people. It is part of a Cresa brokerage organization that is North American wide. We have partnerships with another Knight Frank brokerage company that gives us global reach. But the short answer is my role as a principal at Cresa after almost 15 years now is to work with almost exclusively charities and not-for-profits on their real estate needs, whatever that may look like, whether it's leasing, purchase, sale. And I've been doing that work since July of 2011 and look forward to doing it for many more years to come. So that doesn't get into the background, but that's what I do and where my focus is.
And Cresa represents the tenant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Thanks. Let's take 30 seconds and just clarify that
Yeah.
because I think and I'm glad you raise it. So most people I talk to are familiar with residential real estate agents,
Mm-hmm.
and some are familiar with commercial real estate agents. And they can name the big brokerage firms because they see the signs up on the side of buildings,
Right.
right? You're driving down the street and it says, phone Bob and, talk to him about leasing in this building. The thing that's not immediately apparent in that is that Bob represents the landlord in that deal. Bob's job is to keep that building full, and frankly, and it's a perfectly legitimate thing to do, is to make as much money as possible for that landlord.
Sure. Yeah.
That's no problem. But if you phone Bob and say, I'd like to move into that building, Bob will tell you, great, let me get you set up. And Bob immediately then has a problem. Not that he thinks of it that way,
No. Yeah.
but he gets to represent you, the tenant, who wants the lowest price, and he gets to represent the landlord who employs him to keep the building full and wants the highest price.
Right.
That's a tough job,
Mm.
doing the lowest price and the highest price at the same time.
Sure.
So Cresa, to your point, globally only represents the users, the tenants of space, so that when we say we're going to get you the best deal we can, we mean it
Mm.
and we stand by that. And it's one of the reasons it's such a great fit for charities and not-for-profits,
Yeah.
is that when you say, as the executive director, the CFO, the president, doesn't matter, when you say to your board members, we've got somebody who's working for us to get a great deal, there is no conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's a great feature of what Cresa does. So thanks for clarifying that. Appreciate it. So Jeff, I mean, I can't imagine how many conversations you've had. Many, many, many conversations with boards of directors, with executive directors of charities, who are all in different areas of need from a real estate perspective. And some of them need large offices, some of them very small offices. But if you could, just generally speaking, give us a sense of what a charity is up against when they're trying to not only negotiate space, but certainly just come to an understanding of what's the strategic use of the space going to be for some of the things that you're hearing in the marketplace today around that.
Wow, you're asking great questions, and I'd like to take that in about 15 different directions.
Yeah, sure. Well, go for it.
All right, so let's see where this goes. So the first thing I would say is that what are they up against? Well, the first thing they're up against is most organizations deal with their real estate however they need it every 3, 5, 7, 10 years. There's no magic number,
Yeah.
but it means that you're doing it once every few years. So if you're doing it on your own, then you're in a bit of a pickle because you don't do it all the time. There may be some obvious things you're missing. So my first point is whether it's Cresa or another brokerage, please use a broker.
Right.
Like really, that would just be advice number one.
Sure.
Number two, what else are they up against? Well, most landlords, particularly for larger, more professional buildings, are, particularly in the GTA,
Mm.
are large institutional landlords.
Yes.
They're the banks, they're insurance firms, they're right. And it's very different from the US. We could talk about that as well, but it's big institutional landlords. So
Yeah.
they're very professional. They hire people who will have every detail covered in the documents. And if you don't understand them, that can also lead to problems down the road.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's the next thing you're up against is that they know what they're doing and they're often very good at it.
Hmm.
I think the other thing that they're up against is, and this is part of why there's a specialty practice group with Cresa, is charities and not-for-profits are different. And I don't have to tell anyone on this listening to this that's the case, but it really is true. You have passion for your mission. You're there to do something more than just feed the bottom line. I
Yeah.
love it. It motivates me and gives me goosebumps. But the fact is, that makes your decision making process a little more nuanced.
Yeah.
You got to think about your clients or your members or the people you serve or whatever you call them. That becomes your mission is important. You've also got more complex decision making. You have a board, you have donors, you have funders, you have other decision makers that are going to make whatever you're deciding not as easy as a president of a law firm or a brokerage saying, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this a second ago, but you're probably not as proficient as it as some big organizations where you might even have an in-house lawyer who deals with this kind of stuff. That's just not true for most charities and not-for-profits. So that's the tip of the iceberg
Yeah.
in terms of what they're dealing with. So what does that prompt for you in terms of other areas?
Yeah. So, you know, payroll obviously is probably the largest expense that a charity has, but where's the line on real estate?
Yeah,
Land?
so it's often the second most expensive line unless there's like been a big IT investment or something like that in the recent
Yeah.
past. So not uncommon, it's very high on the list. It gets nowhere near the attention most of the time until the lease expiry is looming that it might otherwise deserve because staff gets a ton of attention as they should. Let me add another caveat in there because it prompts me when I say that when the lease expiry is looming for the charities and not-for-profits listening to this, please do yourselves and your organization a favor.
Hmm.
Don't wait until the last minute.
Yeah. What's
I
the
can
time
give
frame?
you I'll give you a thousand reasons why it's the case, but just trust me. If even a year is a little tight,
Mm.
18 to 24 months, that's really the time to start thinking about it. So that's a bit of a digression,
Yeah.
but I would say don't wait too long, because your leverage and any ability to negotiate effectively, it's like an iceberg. It just starts shrinking. And the closer you get to 6, 8 months, we can still do it. I've
Yeah.
done lots of deals in that time frame,
Sure. Yeah.
but it's a whole different experience.
Yeah, and that would be from both sides, right? One, either you're staying where you are and you need to renegotiate, or you're thinking of moving and you need to negotiate with a new
If
landlord.
if you're at the 6 month mark, not to spend too much time on it, and you're thinking of moving, it's too late,
Yeah, yeah, that's a lot.
right?
Yeah,
It's just you've missed a window.
yeah. So the pandemic came in 2020. It disrupted things for
The
a good
world
three
changed.
years at least. The world changed. The use of real estate changed,
Hmm.
and certainly heard numerous newscasts, I'm sure, and read in articles of companies that were like, as soon as our lease is over, we're either shrinking our footprint, we're getting rid of our offices entirely,
Hmm.
we're moving to a co-working space. Number of different considerations, especially around renewal time, or as you say, preferably months before renewal time.
Or years.
Yeah, or years. What have been the major changes you've seen pre-pandemic versus where we are today, and the way charities particularly are wanting to use their space?
I would say that there's countless subplots. One
Yeah,
of the big phrases, one of the big changes can be summed up in a single word. I would say the word is hybrid.
yeah, yeah.
So let's start here.
Okay.
In the media and our leadership, Doug Ford
Yeah,
himself
yeah,
has talked about bringing provincial employees back to the office 4 days a week, and now 5 days a week in the new year.
yeah,
And we've heard it from all sorts of corporate leaders about bringing their staff back. So the newspapers pick that up. It's big news. So charities and not-for-profits can be forgiven for thinking that that's the norm, that
yeah.
that's the way it is.
Sure.
I would tell you with a completely straight face, do not believe the hype.
Mm,
All right? It's just not the case in our sector.
sure. Yeah.
So I'd be the first to agree that, we're seeing a huge spectrum of responses in the for-profit world, but the range of change in the charity and not-for-profit world is more nuanced, more focused around hybrid, and also is way more specific organization by organization. My mantra in all of this is you should do what's right for your team and
Hmm.
the people or cause that you serve.
Yeah.
Do not for a second think that just because everybody else is doing it in the media, you need to. So that's one. What does that look like? Well, what it looks like is this. I think there have been a few macro trends there. Most organizations today either don't have a formal policy around hybrid, or they are requiring people in a formal policy to come into the office a couple of days a week.
Right.
We have data on it, so I can say that with a straight face. That it's either no policy, kind of ad hoc, or a day or two a week. There are some subsets of the charity and not-for-profit world, I think of associations,
Sure.
where if you have members, optometrists, whatever it might be,
Yeah. Sure.
that are by the nature of their job being forced to come into work, they might look a little askance if the association that they're part of doesn't do the same. So
Right.
we do see these nuances based on the nature of the culture and the client. But in general terms, a couple of days a week. What does that mean? Well,
Mm,
it means a couple of things. To team build, we could talk all about those changes, and maybe we
yeah.
will later.
Yeah.
It's probably appropriate to get the team together once a week, once a month, once a quarter, whatever.
Hmm.
But how do you manage that in terms of seating? And how do you deal with ensuring that that culture stays strong? training, onboarding, all the other things that go with it.
Yeah.
So Cresa can help with that, but my point is there are some best practices there we can discuss.
Yeah.
The other thing that people are dealing with in a hybrid world is assuming you've managed the hybrid communication well, you probably don't need as much space as you used to.
Right.
Here's another takeaway for your audience. The surest, easiest, and quickest way to save money in commercial real estate is to have less space. I can negotiate till the cows come home
Yeah.
and not save as much money as you dropping your footprint by a third.
Yeah.
I'm
Absolutely.
not I'm not saying that's the solution. I'm just
Right.
saying that's a quick way to save a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you don't need that much space, please don't take it. How do you determine that space? We could also discuss that as
Yeah.
a insight to share. But once you realize that you need less space, I'm going to get concrete in a second, you can actually do a couple of things. One, because you no longer have assigned seating, culture shift, you can likely do something different with your layout. So you're going to focus less on individual offices and dedicated offices to spaces that are collaborative, to spaces that allow drop in and sort of hot desking and hoteling, to use older language.
Yeah.
You're also going to, in shrinking your footprint, put some of that savings, one hopes, to mission. But the other thing we're seeing a lot of is some of those savings going to improving the space. The phrase we've been using is flight to quality.
Okay.
So, and we can talk also about the market trends around A buildings versus C buildings.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing is charities that are able to do so are saving money in a better space, better geography, better amenities, path connected if that works for you in the downtown, whatever it might be,
Better technology.
better technology, better furniture.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that all does, in addition to hitting two key points at the same way, the other thing it does is it actually entices people to come back to the office of their
Mm.
own free will, because nobody wants to make the long commute in the GTA to come into a junk heap.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I hear you.
So I touched on about 40 different threads there, but that's the answer.
So I want to touch on a few of those threads as well. But when an organization is evaluating what their next step is as far as real estate, maybe can you give us a sense of, you could have full on office space, or you could all work from home, or you can have a
Spectrum
co-working
there.
space, or so.
Yep.
What is the spectrum that people can consider when they're looking at what to do with their space?
Yeah. So let's start with that spectrum and then talk about some nuances in that.
Yeah.
I got an email today, just literally this morning,
Yeah.
from a client of mine saying, thanks for your recent help with our renewal, but we've decided, because it was on their radar, we're going completely virtual. Can you help us with our furniture, like getting rid of it?
Okay. Wow.
So I sent them
All right.
suggestions.
Yeah.
I'm not making this up, hot off the presses.
Okay.
What do I do with my furniture?
Yeah.
So that's one. The other end of the spectrum is are some organizations that are getting larger,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
Demand hasn't, for our various services, hasn't changed. If anything, it's grown over the since the pandemic, last many years. So organizations have grown. Now, what's happened, and this is an interesting dynamic, is many of those people have been either remote, as in Edmonton or Halifax,
Yeah.
or have just been in Barrie and wherever else outside of the GTHA. And so it hasn't increased the need for office space. But
Mm.
one of the tricks is, for organizations that are bringing people back in more and more, they're realizing they don't have enough space. So we are seeing some
Yeah.
that are doing the opposite of completely virtual. They're growing. Okay. Between that, I would say the vast majority are downsizing. The phrase I would use is right sizing. What
Mm.
is your hybrid model,
Yeah.
and how do we implement that? I would include co-working spaces, the WeWorks, the Regis, the
Mm.
IQ office, all that kind of stuff. That's a perfectly legitimate way to address a smaller footprint.
Yeah.
I would say quickly for organizations that are looking at co-working space, you pay more on a per square foot basis, but you can often tailor exactly how much space you need. I need 2 offices and a touchdown desk, and everything else is shared. No problem. One of those firms can set you up quite nicely. And then the nuance is, do you want beer on tap or do you want paid photocopying? I
Right.
like there's 1,000 different service offerings.
Sure.
The other piece is when you're getting smaller, if you are, is you can do a direct lease. That basically means I or someone helps the organization find a a lease with a landlord, but you might take a subtenancy. You might share a space. This is not co-working. A
Right.
shared space agreement is you move in with organization, often this way, organization X, Y, or Z. It might be a board member space, something like that.
Yeah.
But long story short, that's another option.
Mm.
And the other one I would put into the how do you manage space is it's not a leased solution, but you can say, I'm going to go virtual, but in order to maintain my culture and so forth, we might use a board member space, we might book hotel meeting rooms, but
Yeah.
we're going to get together on a regularly scheduled basis in order to further our connectivity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a countless options. They
Yeah.
need to be what's best. How do you know how much space? I'm going to preempt one of your questions. You need you need advice.
Mm.
I think many organizations will say, and I've heard them say it to me, we need about half.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a perfectly legitimate place to start. But I won't name names. I went through a project last year, so fairly recent, with a larger charity, and they started there. They said, we need about half.
Mm.
And then we looked and it was too little.
Mm.
And then we looked and they rejigged without doing because they were adamant that they knew, they needed half.
Yeah.
Then we looked larger and it was too long story short, we eventually found something that was the sweet spot. But the process that makes for me the most sense is to start at the front end and kind of zero base. I'm using the financial concept here. How many offices do you think you need? How many touchdown spaces? And a good broker, Cresa, have tools that can help unearth what that is. We apply some metrics, we use a gross up factor, all the things that are technical, and we say, you know what? You actually need 3,800 square feet, so we're going to search from 3,600 to 4,500 square feet.
Sure. Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah. No, it makes sense and very practical for those that, as you say, aren't in the real estate business. So
We do it every day.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, and I know this is a maybe the minority of charities and nonprofits, but those that do own a building
Hmm.
and are either downsizing or find themselves stuck, they have no more space to grow into, even within their own existing space. Um, what are some recommendations for people in that situation?
Can I get to that question in a second and answer something you didn't ask?
Okay, sure.
Because it's another favorite theme of mine, if you
Yeah.
don't mind.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know of a board in North America that doesn't say to their ED or to their CFO at some point in time, why don't we just own a building? We
Mm,
should own a building. We're spending money on rent that could be, we could be building equity. Let me describe in brief the pros and cons to that conversation. The first point I would make is that it makes more sense for some organizations than others. If you're an organization that has a mission or clients that landlords struggle with,
yeah, good point.
right?
Hmm.
If you are dealing with people who have been in conflict with the law, if you're dealing with people who have addiction or mental health issues,
Mm,
and it breaks my heart and infuriates me, but landlords in the commercial world are under no obligation to do the morally or ethically correct thing.
yeah, yeah,
And I can't tell you how long it takes sometimes to find spaces. So if those organizations own their building,
Yeah.
they can tell the landlords to take a long hike off a short pier because
Yeah.
they own their own space. They get to decide.
Yeah.
So the other thing I would say is that um, it can be an equity building exercise, but it requires a level of expertise that most charities and not-for-profits don't have,
Right.
right? They're not building managers. And I've had real experiences where organizations have put money to mission, money to mission, money to mission, and the building starts leaking and falling apart.
Yeah.
And one in particular had a boiler go down, had to be fully replaced,
Hmm.
and they had a tree fall into the roof of one of their buildings. The insurance covered the damage, but there were a whole bunch of other costs that weren't covered, as you can imagine.
Yeah, for
They
sure.
ended up having to sell the building,
Yeah.
right? So my point is that, and I could go on these examples, it can be a great idea, but it isn't necessarily. And there is a reason why most big, successful, for-profit organizations don't own.
Yeah.
It's not a liquid asset. It's so pros and cons.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you didn't ask, but I answered. So what was your first question? The
Yeah.
real question.
So it was more about a situation where if you do own the building and
Right.
you need to downsize or you need to upsize,
hmm
what are some of your options? I'm
Right. So that's a great sort of transition off of pros and cons
yeah.
is the building you own, it might be an office condo, it might be a standalone building, whatever it is, it's landlocked.
Yeah.
It's about the flexibility that leasing offers. Because if you go to your landlord and you say, I want more space, they're generally pretty receptive,
Yeah.
right? More space, fantastic.
Yeah.
Particularly in this market, we can talk about that later too. But from an ownership point of view, you're landlocked. So you could do this. Okay, we're run out of space. We're just going to lease more space over here. Well, now you got a bit of the worst of both worlds,
Yeah.
right? The team's no longer all together. You're now incurring these leasing costs. So can you do it? Sure. The
Yeah.
other thing that can happen is that if you want to downsize, back to that conversation,
Yeah.
do you then bring in other tenants? Do you really want to become a landlord?
Right.
Like maybe you do. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's a bad idea, but it another level of complexity. So owning your building is a great idea under the right circumstances. We have helped organizations buy buildings,
Hmm.
but I would be honest, and again, not a huge sample size, but it's hundreds of different transactions. More have been about selling an asset.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. So changing gears a little bit here, and you started to touch on it earlier. The whole idea of what does this mean for attracting talent? What does it mean for culture? What does it mean for some of the amenities and conveniences that you had talked about, that type of thing? What are some of the things that charities need to consider as far as talent attraction? And what are candidates or prospective employees or current employees looking for as well? So kind of it's both and, but what are you seeing in the market around those conversations?
So
Hmm.
my response is less going to be individually focused and more about what are organizations doing and what's the current, again, this sort of post-pandemic hybrid
Yeah,
world, what's going on there.
yeah,
And
yeah,
in that area, it's been absolutely fascinating to see. And we've got survey data over the last many years within a North American survey that Cresa runs that validates what I'm about to say. But there was initially a lot of concern because at least in Canada, many people weren't allowed into the office at all. It was
yeah.
just,
Right.
we were locked down.
Hmm.
So there were concerns about culture and about onboarding and training, all those things. Organizations over the last several years have stabilized those things. I don't think they've gotten somehow magically a whole lot better than
Right.
pre-pandemic, but I'm not hearing the data is not showing significant concerns on many of those fronts
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
They figured it out. But we've seen a couple of things, and one that I really like, and you just mentioned it, changes for the positive. And one of them is this idea of attracting talent.
Yeah.
And what drives that are a couple of different things. First off, and I have lots of live examples of this,
Mm.
if you're a hybrid charity or not for profit, you can find the best talent wherever it may be.
Yeah.
If you want to find a capital campaign fundraiser, better yet, a grant writer. Let's use a grant writer.
Sure.
If
Yeah.
you want the best grant writer in Canada and the one you find is in Edmonton and you're hybrid, you should hire them
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're hybrid.
Yeah.
If you are looking for a graphic designer and the one you really, really want is in Halifax,
Mm.
you see where I'm going.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of attracting talent that's improved, and we
Yeah.
see that in the feedback. The other thing that's changed with attracting talent is hybrid is being treated as a benefit. Remember, we started this conversation
Yeah.
talking about the media hyping about being forced back into the office. I don't think there's this sense that people are going to resign en masse
Yeah.
anymore if they're required to come back to it. But they might hate it
Yeah.
and they might start looking for other work. But it
Sure.
also means that people in the government, for example, right now that are being told, come back 4 or 5 days a week or else, and they've arranged their entire life around hybrid,
Yeah.
childcare, whatever it might be, it's going to be field day
Yeah.
for the charities and not-for-profits finding talent because it's a benefit.
Yeah.
So charities and not-for-profits just aren't using hybrid passively. They're using it as an attraction and retention tool to bring the best talent geographically and sort of recruitment wise to their organization. Now, last point. In our recent Cresa conversation where we talked with some of the other co-leaders, the co-leader out of Washington D.C. talked about another piece that is attracting talent, and that is there have been these massive layoffs
Yeah.
in the U.S. under the current Trump world,
Hmm.
and what's happened is that lots and lots of great talent is looking for work because they've been laid off.
Yeah.
So I'm not happy about it. It's terrible. But what it does mean is that that's also, from a purely selfish point of view, easier to attract talent.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think it's fair to say that we're commonly asked about remote or hybrid work when we're talking to candidates.
I bet.
Probably in the top three questions, is this a hybrid work environment?
Yep,
And
got it.
what's the charity's perspective on that? And I think there are some charities that are looking to have people back in the office. I think there's
Hmm.
frankly,
Some.
there's probably individuals who are happy to not work from home anymore and go back to the office. Not everybody loves the work from home idea. Yeah. So from a talent attraction perspective, it's certainly huge. And uh, even on the remote, like from a remote conversation perspective, as you said, so if the charity is based in Toronto, but the best person for the role is in Halifax or Edmonton, um, especially for some national organizations, that's
Hmm.
that's just a huge benefit that they can take advantage of.
Yep.
And one of your colleagues yesterday, I should say, she brought this up, so it's not an original thought on my part, but you started to touch on it. It is now sort of seen as a benefit because charities, for better or for worse, tend not to be able to pay market rate all the time for
Hmm.
certain roles.
Yep.
Um, to be able to have the flexibility is a nice benefit and cost savings for individuals who don't have to commute every day and incur the expense for that type of thing.
I can say with a completely straight face from a purely personal point of view that
Mm.
I'm in the office. My commitment to Cresa has been I will be in the office at least one day a week.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't mean I'm not on the road touring with clients or having face to face meetings or whatever, but I don't live in downtown Toronto, but our
Yeah.
office is there, and I
Yeah.
just don't go in every day, and that's fine,
Yeah.
right? That's
And
a
you're
that's an
and you're
a
in the business.
retention tool. Yeah, I'm in the business exactly. Right.
um, let's just talk about culture and socialization just a little bit because it is an element to which organizations who perhaps have more sizable teams, but it's important for small teams as well. That
Hmm.
that idea of getting together the working together, being collaborative, that type of thing. Um, you that doesn't require somebody to have a 5-year lease on a 2,000 square feet of property. But
Right.
what are some of the things that your clients are doing to address culture and socialization?
Yeah, I would say I can offer a couple of thoughts on what I think of as best practices.
Yeah.
Um, I love the concept that comes from social purpose real estate, spree,
Mm.
that is this idea of activation. So I've been involved with a variety of groups doing social purpose real estate, groups coming together, kind of hub style,
Yeah. Okay.
but they want those spaces to feel alive. They
Mm.
want them to, people to feel excited to be there, and they create consciously activation. It may be lunch and learn. It may be an opportunity to come in and do Taco Tuesdays.
Okay.
It might be come in on Thursday afternoons and we'll all go out for a drink afterwards. You can come up with 1,000 different concepts, but this idea of activating both in your space and around your space. Uh, Again, just because it's a live example for me personally, we just had a C&E day a
Mm.
couple of days ago at the Cresa office. You can look at my LinkedIn. There's a photo of
Mhm.
us there, and we had fun events and we had a lunch that might not suit everybody, right? Budgets are tight, and it wasn't like we spent millions of dollars, but we had a little bit of food brought in, some pizza, and we had some fun games, and it was a blast.
Yeah.
So that's one way. The
Mm.
other things that I think we're seeing are the idea that there are going to be specific things that either are required or encouraged for team members. So if you want to talk about your organization's recent successes and projects that are ongoing and new training, maybe quarterly,
Mhm.
you're bringing the team in for that stuff. So it's not so much the fun stuff, but it's these are things we really do want you to be here for because it adds value to have you learning this stuff firsthand. You can also do this, and now I'm getting into the HR side a little bit. You can make sure that people are having the opportunity to do mentoring and assigning people in a kind of matrix way that keeps those lines of connection alive,
Mm.
even when there are new people joining the organization.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Cresa did a recent benchmark study. It was North American wide. Obviously, yours was more focused in here in Ontario.
Hmm.
But were there one or two highlights or surprises for you that came out of that report?
Yeah, we've alluded to one of them, which was this attracting talent.
Yeah.
Steady improvement. It has gone over the last 5 years. It's gone up incrementally every single year. So I love that. I think the other one, and we've alluded to this a little bit, is the validation of the days in the office. It is two,
Yeah.
is the
Is it?
most common
Okay.
number.
Yeah.
It's two. In case anyone's wondering, charity and not for profit. And as I had said before, this idea that there a lot of organizations have no policy.
Yeah. Right.
It's not formalized. It's what works best for us and what works best for individual teams, etc.
Mm.
I think the other thing that I found intriguing was that we've got organizations that when they remember I talked about this idea of uh, flight to quality.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're seeing is it really is about the inside of the space and spending some money to get it built out the way you want.
Yeah.
There's an interesting synergy. So I'm going to overlap the state of the market. We can talk more about that, particularly here in Southern Ontario, GTA,
Yeah.
with having a little bit of money. Landlords of late are really keen to attract new tenants.
Okay.
And one of the things that you can inform for the people listening, you can afford your board is landlords aren't necessarily dropping their rents. Remember, big, large institutional professional landlords, they've got billions of dollars in assets. They are not dropping their rents. They can
Yeah.
wait.
Okay.
But they are interested in getting new tenants.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is they're providing inducements that don't affect their rents, like build out allowances or turnkey suites that are built out. So people are getting nicer spaces. They're fresh, they're built the way you want, and that's a good thing.
Right.
The flip side, as with so many things in life, there's a continuum. And the phrase I used in discussing the report you're describing was a phrase I picked up from one of my clients. They said, "Yeah, we really want a nice space," they said, "but it can't be gold plated." I was like, "Ah,
Nice,
that's a
but not
good."
too nice. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
And what they said to me was, "Look, we're donor driven, and
Yeah.
I would expand this to include membership driven.
Sure.
If one of our donors walks in and it's gold plated, or if you're membership driven and one of your members walks in, they may wonder where their donation or their dues
Yeah.
is going if the space is too gold plated." I
Yeah.
love it, right? What a great insight.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, an age-old dilemma for charities, right?
Right. Can I opine on that for just a second? Can I
Yeah.
share a little personal passion for
Yep.
2 seconds?
Go for it.
I can't tell you how sick and tired I am
Mm.
of organizations that choose where they have the wherewithal to be in crappy space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So it affects retention, it affects morale, I'm going to share a quick anecdote. Again, I'm not naming names. One of my coworkers at Cresa and I did a project. This is now many years ago, where we were working with a larger organization. They do amazing
Mm.
work. And their head office was crappy.
Mm. Okay.
That may not
Right.
be a professional term, but
Right.
I'm being polite. It was
Yeah.
really
Not
not
high
very
on the real
pleasant.
estate continuum. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the lower end of the spectrum.
Okay.
So we found them a space, and now admittedly, some of this is good timing, good negotiation, good research. We
Yeah.
found them a space that had been built out by a previous tenant,
Mm.
and they got the benefit of this lovely big kitchen, and it was fresh and bright and high ceilinged, and it was a great space. But here's the punchline.
Mm.
They did kind of an open house when they brought staff in to see the new space, that a few renovations needed to be done just to get it ready for their use. So they showed them around. They had staff members burst into tears of joy. I'm
Mm.
not making this up.
Yeah.
Tears of joy
Yeah.
about like, how do we deserve this? This is so marvelous. And it wasn't gold plated. It's just
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But it was such an improvement. Don't you want your employees to feel that proud of their workspace?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so it's a personal passion, and I really, please, if you can do it, again, I maybe out of your control, but if you can do it,
Yeah.
don't be operating on trashy old computers
Yeah.
and uncomfortable chairs and hand-me-down desks, because they're big and they're inefficient space-wise.
Yeah.
You, I just talk to me. Let's figure something
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. No, I hear you and affirm what you're saying. I just think uh, charitable employees, uh, whether it's the ED or the front desk or anyone in between, um, the better the space, the better the productivity, the higher the probably the motivation to bring people to it, and it doesn't have, as you say, it doesn't have to be splashy. It
Nope.
and it
And
or
done right, it doesn't have to cost a whole lot more.
yeah,
Right? One of the things in the report that we saw was there are still lots of organizations that feel like they're in too much space.
yeah, yeah,
Some of that is due to the fact that leases can run 10 years. Well, the pandemic was in 2020. It's
yeah,
only 5 years. So if you signed a lease as recently as 2019, excuse me, you're
yeah.
only in year 6,
That's right. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So if you signed even a 7-year lease,
yeah,
it's so my why I raise that is that those are organizations that are going, how much space do I need? It can still be smaller,
yeah,
but how much? Remember that earlier point I made,
yeah,
and all the other questions that go with layout, design. Right. I'm going to digress again quickly. You want a broker to help you that
yeah,
can help you figure out how much space, and if at all possible, this is Cresa, so forgive me for being salesy.
That's good.
We have an integrated design firm
Oh,
right in-house,
hmm,
right? Right down the hall from me in my office
yeah.
is the full design team. So when the time comes, they've been involved in helping determine how much space is required from the start.
Hmm, yeah.
Makes it pretty efficient. One line of communication, or the phrase I like, one neck to choke, in terms of that communication,
Yeah.
plus project management, plus so all those integrated service, not a third party, in-house.
Yeah. No, that's great. Um, let's talk about the market a little bit.
Hmm.
I know your specialty is GTA and Hamilton, so GTHA, I guess, is
Yep.
how we say it. Um, I live downtown, so I see lots of construction of brand new, very nice looking high rise commercial space, and 50-year-old space like First Canadian Place, although they keep it spruced up, of course. But
Uh-huh.
and you use the term A and C class, and so maybe just can you educate us a little bit? What are the different classes of buildings, and in this market, especially for charities and nonprofits, where are you seeing the best investments for them, and especially if they're moving, but also if they're renewing and looking for some of those inducements, as you said.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me start again. You mentioned the word renewing versus moving.
Yeah.
Organizations listening to this podcast, I hope, are going to start at the 2-year mark or more. Like
Right.
they're going to get an early start. One of the things you want to do is you want to go out and you want to look at the market.
Yeah.
The reason is that organizations often will tell me, I'm not moving. It's not worth the hassle. And
Mm-hmm.
often they're the ones who are like, oh, that's a great space. And they end up moving there.
Yeah.
Or they say, we are absolutely moving. And then they go through the process. They go out and kick some tires and they wind up staying. Do not predict,
Yeah. Right. Okay.
but do the process.
Sure.
Do yourself a favor, figure out how much space, and then go look around. But you need time to do it.
Yeah.
Next, what about the market? So, pre-pandemic, the GTHA had amongst the lowest vacancy rates ever
Hmm.
and the lowest vacancy rates in North America.
Wow.
So, if you didn't do a deal on a space that you liked, it was almost like the housing craze in Toronto. If you
Yeah.
didn't do a deal on week 1, by week 3 it was gone. Not just in negotiation, it was already locked up.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay? That is no longer the case.
Yeah. What is the vacancy rate?
Well, so across particularly the downtown core, it went from sub 2% vacancy
Hmm.
to well into the double digits,
Wow.
into the teens.
Yeah.
It's a sea change. It's
Yeah.
a completely different market. But I want to be clear, again, back to managing board member expectations. Landlords, by and large, while they get it, are not dropping the rents.
Yeah.
So if you're paying $23 net, just to pick a number out of the air, and you've been in that space for 6 years, you're not going to pay $10.
Mm.
It's just
Hmm.
not happening.
Yeah. Right.
But what you're going to find is, particularly if you've gone and done your homework, that there's some flexibility either in a new location or in your current location to
Hmm.
keep you. Tenants, they're more valuable now. They
Yeah.
just are. So, what I would say in terms of the broader market is the buildings that are not showing the higher vacancy rates
Yeah.
tend to be the nicer buildings. And it's not a straight curve. It's not a, but I think we can show statistically that that's true.
Mm.
But the other thing I would say is that those buildings, you talked about ABC or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars.
Yeah.
There's different metrics based on different. It's not a scientific measure,
Yeah.
right? So please do not let your board members tell you, well, we need to be in a Class B building.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know. Why don't you just tell me which buildings suit you best?
Yeah.
And
Right.
so it's not a scientific measure. It gives me a sense of what you're looking for. Kind of a low A, high B is a common space for charities and not for profits to be in. But don't quote me on that,
Yeah. Right.
right? We've got clients in A buildings, we've got clients in C buildings, but sometimes the differences may not be that apparent at initially.
Yeah. And
Okay.
sometimes, as you said earlier, it's location to proximity to the subway or, stuff like
Subway's a big one. The
that.
amenities in the building are a big one.
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
physical space, might be in a nice building, but be really tired.
Yeah. Right.
So the marketplace has gone from 2% to well into the double digits, but it's worse. That vacancy rate is worse in the C buildings. The old tired buildings are really struggling right
Yeah.
now.
Okay. Are those the ones that are getting knocked down for these new office towers or?
Well, so that's a broader macroeconomic issue, but
Mm.
actually we're not seeing the office towers that were already kind of foundation built and going up, they're being finished.
Yeah. Okay.
But given what's gone on with interest rates and tariff induced costs to building materials and all that good stuff, we're just not seeing a lot of new towers going up for the office. We're not.
Yeah. Okay.
And why would you build one when vacancy rates are so high,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
These big institutional landlords will just wait,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the market will eventually come back, right? Population is growing, businesses and charities and not-for-profits all grow,
Mm.
one hopes. So the bottom line is that we are not in a situation where we're seeing a ton of new development, um, and there are some, and it's kind of quirky. There are some really nice buildings for a variety of reasons, whether it's amenity or proximity to transit, that are still empty.
Hmm. Interesting.
Some really nice, wonderful buildings
Yeah.
that, you know, they just haven't caught fire,
Yeah.
and um, but the big bank towers, nobody builds those without already having leased, of the 50 floors, 35 of them to a large institutional tenant.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And they're largely owned, as you say, by pension funds and banks and that type of
Yeah,
thing. So,
exactly.
so are there for organizations that are in um, process of
Hmm.
considering their needs from
Hmm.
a real estate perspective, are there deals to be had for
Yeah,
charities? Yeah.
absolutely there are.
Okay.
And I want to be clear, this is true for all brokers. The phrase that we use is we can't make the market. If
Right.
you're looking for near to free space that's in a really nice building, like,
It's not
come on,
not
help me
realistic.
here.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
realistic. We
Yeah.
can't make the market.
Yeah.
But if you're flexible, if your geographic constraints aren't too high, there are some nodes where I can get you a smoking hot deal.
Yeah.
Now, again, I don't want the deal to drive the decision. That should never be the way the process works.
Yeah.
What are your needs? Let's enunciate them. Let's get them in writing. Let's talk about your options. Let's go tour them. But if it happens to be that you can be in that geography and in that particular building,
Yeah.
some landlords are ready to do a deal.
Okay. Yeah. That's great. Um, Jeff, this has all been really helpful. And I think for organizations that are looking at the market today and wondering, what do we need? Where do we go? Do we go remote, hybrid? Do we have people in 5 days a week? I'm sure the conversations are, vast as far as those things are concerned. Just give us maybe some final comments on where you see real estate over the next 5 years as it relates to the GTHA particularly, but just any sort of final ideas or thoughts that you could share with our audience.
Yeah, maybe I can interject another little sales point first.
Yeah, sure, go
And
for it.
just occurs to me as we talk about the sort of the next 5 years. The other one that occurred to me is you may, if it is possible, have some people listening to this podcast, watching it, who are like, I'd like to talk to Jeff. That's fine. I'd love to talk to you too. But here's where I was going to go with that.
Yeah,
One of the tips that I would give is, particularly for larger organizations, it can often be seen as sort of sexy to have charity clients.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So some of these large brokerages, real estate commercial brokerages, they'll put on a full court press to win that business.
Hmm.
Okay. But I already talked about how complex it is,
Yeah.
right? Takes time, can be pretty demanding. I would just urge caution again, I'm not suggesting anything nefarious here. I
Yeah.
would just urge caution around, is the person that's presenting to you going to be the one you're going to be working with
Hmm.
over the entire process?
Hmm. Yeah.
Just to, you know, because I can tell you again, if you're working with Cresa and you talk to me and members of my team, right? We assembled the team. That's the team you're going to keep working with. For better or for worse, if you sign on with me, you're getting me.
Okay. There you go.
So
Fair enough.
that just popped into my head. Let me
Yeah.
share this piece around the 5-year mark. If I could predict what the market would be
Hmm.
in 3 years, 5 years, even 6 months,
Yeah.
I'd be a very, very wealthy man.
Right.
I'm,
Yeah.
so it's a hard question, but I can offer these thoughts. I think there's some macroeconomic factors that would encourage flexibility. I hear that a lot from my clients. So flexibility comes in a number of forms. The length of your term is one,
Yeah.
an option to terminate. And I don't want to get too into the technical weeds here, but that's an example of managing term. We can also talk with landlords. You talked about being landlocked and so forth before, about rights of first refusal and options to extend. So
Yeah.
there are a bunch of technical things that we can do to provide maximum flexibility.
Hmm.
But I would be naive not to think that Trump's tariffs aren't going to impact us. They already are economically. If you're a steel worker or uh, working in the automotive sector, you're already feeling the heat, and my heart goes out to you because that
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to have ripple effects across the economy,
Hmm.
and it may affect your donors. And we've already heard Doug Ford, we've already heard Mark Carney talk about austerity budgets,
Yeah. Sure.
which may affect your funding.
Yeah.
So it's a long-winded way to say I don't know what the next 5 years is going to bring, but I would urge that whoever your listeners are working with to think about flexibility within reason, because you're going to pay for that flexibility.
Hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Jeff, I would be happy for people to reach out to you. So we're going to put your contact information in our show notes for sure.
Great, of
And
course.
anyone who is listening, I think Jeff and Cresa have an offering that is certainly worthy of consideration. So I would definitely reach out to them. And I'm not getting paid to say that.
Nope.
That is not a paid plug. That is just, I've known Jeff for years, and I
Thank
think
you.
he's going to give you the truth, and he's going to help you make the right decisions as far as one of the biggest expenses and one of the biggest things affecting employees and the work that you do on a regular basis. So,
And I would wrap up on my side by offering this to the people that are listening to this. If you are working in a or for a charity or a not-for-profit, thank you.
hmm,
You make the world a better place in whatever way you do it. And I am grateful and appreciative of the work you do.
awesome. And likewise, Jeff, I am grateful and appreciative of you joining us today. So great to have you as a guest. It's been, I know we've talked about it for a while, so it's great to have it. And if people are interested in that report, certainly reach out to Jeff as well. I'm sure he can give you some.
I can send you a link and make sure that you have it in hand.
Great. Awesome. Jeff, thanks so much. Great to have
Thanks,
you here
David.
today. Take care.
Take care.